about we are going to be speaking today about sowing zero waste campuses around the country. Our first speaker is Ella Copiatti. She's a senior majoring in environmental studies at the State University of New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry. And Ella, if you're ready, you can go ahead and take it away. Bonnie, are you going to go ahead and move through her presentation?
Yes, I'll do that.
Great, thank you. All right.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I'm super excited to be sharing this project that I did, I want to say 2 years ago. It was a really fun project and I always love talking about it. So this is really exciting. So we can get right into it. Okay, so for the purpose of this small talk, I figured that, you should probably know 3 things, but I was already introduced. So yes, I'm a senior. Another thing that you should know about me that will be relevant to the talk is I love food. Specifically, I love to make food and to share that food with the people, like my friends. We do that a lot every week. We'll have dinners together. And it's a great way to connect with your peers and just your friends. And then another thing that you should know is that I'm really passionate about inclusivity and equity, which is why this project was super special to me. And I really cannot wait to share with you all. To the next slide. Cool, thank you. So before, you probably have or haven't heard of the term agroecology before. I know I haven't before taking that class. And so the way that I like to explain it is basically agroecology would be the way of producing food that is in harmony with your environment. So basically, it's taking a holistic approach to farming. Its attitude is very much a ground to top one. And so when you cut the word in two, you have agronomy, which I like to explain it as the application of science and technology from all the fields to the betterment of food crops. And then you have ecology, which is basically the study of the relationships between living beings and their environment. So it's pretty much agroecology is pretty much an interdisciplinary study. And its goal all along was to empower the local communities to, I want to say, change the social relations and to add value locally. As well as to give privilege to the short value chains. Next slide, thank you. And so for our project, which was 2 years ago, it was an agroecology project. We had to design a food garden for our campus community, and that garden would have to be used in the summer and the spring semester. Something to know about, so I go to upstate in Syracuse, and it's really hard for students to have access to fresh produce unless it's the farmers markets, but not all students can have access to that. We also wanted to provide the opportunity for our community to connect in different ways. So like I mentioned earlier, food can be such a special way to build connections with your friends or even strangers. So we wanted to provide that space for everyone. And so on the more technical side, we had to do some research because not all vegetables can grow and thrive in Syracuse. So that's what we had to focus on, finding the types of soil, finding the type of environment that would best fit for our project, as well as we had to research the different types of containers. And then next slide, please. Oh, So, okay, so basically we had a lot of fun researching with plants and the flowers that would benefit our gardens. Here you can see that's like a couple of ones that we've included. And something really important about building and designing a sustainable garden would be to include supporting plants, because not only do they provide nutrients to your vegetables, they can also attract pollinators, and they also serve as a really, really good pest repellent. So let's see, for example, I'm looking here at borage. Borage would be a flower. It repels like many pests, like the imported cabbage worms, but also the tomato hornworms, but also attracts pollinators. So it does both. We also have catmint, which was one of our group members' like favorites because it's a perennial, which means that you can grow it around the garden. So it kind of serves like a live fence. It repels aphids, cabbage loopers, and many other pests. So that would be like a great natural barrier. And then a personal favorite of mine would be basil. I grew up in the south of France, and we would use basil all the time. It was also like a personal favorite in our garden because it can act as like an accent. And for Syracuse, it would have been like awesome and great because it can repel mosquitoes, and in the spring, and specifically in the summer when it gets warmer, there's a lot of mosquitoes. So they just like to hang out, and those basil repels mosquitoes. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the rendering of our research. So here, so this is just a snippet. It's a much longer list, but it basically helped and allowed our team to visualize exactly how many plants we would need and how far away from each other they had to be, and when would be the ideal time to plant them and harvest them. Yeah. So another thing about a sustainable garden, or at least the larger ones, a lot of them include cattle or just animals onto their farms because their manure can serve as a great fertilizer. However, with the size of our garden, we decided that it wasn't really realistic to include animals. It's also a great responsibility as well, especially because students, faculty, and staff would have been the one to take care of that garden. So we just decided to focus and prioritize pollinators instead. Okay, so when thinking about agroecology, we came up with 8 principles that were extremely important and that we wanted to honor and respect. And so, for example, I'll just walk you through those like very naturally. We had to make sure that we used a variety of plants. We weren't interested in a monoculture. So these plants had to be different, and they had to be able to work together. They needed to have a mutualistic relationship, which would promote productivity in the garden. It was also really important to us to incorporate native plants, which is why we added the American groundnut, which is native to the area. Next slide, please. And then the four other ones. So the American groundnut was one of our teammates' personal request, so we honored that. We also wanted our garden to be, I want to say, as efficient as possible, which is why we wanted to include composting and rainwater harvesting bins. Because this garden was going to be taken care of by students, like I mentioned earlier, and faculty and staff, we thought that it would be interesting to have this mix of knowledge all mingle together and come together, because when that happens, you create a new type of knowledge, and we would be able to empower ourselves to become like catalysts for a sustainable garden on campus. Okay, so this is the rendering of the garden. So we used a website, it's called the Old Farmer's Almanac Garden. So we had to work with that type of layout, but you can see here that we have the perennials around that would serve as like a natural barrier. And then when you go inside, we wanted to provide kind of a full sensory experience. That was a part of our design choices. We thought it was really important to play with the heights of the different containers. So I have them listed like on the left here. We also, during our research, we had to figure out which vegetables work best together, which ones were campus favorites, students' favorites, and we all included them, and we made them, we just aligned them with the aromatics, the flowers. We wanted to play with the senses, which is why we have so many aromatics. We have flowers as well, which we thought would have been lovely to add like a touch of color. And just to provide overall a really enjoyable experience for anyone who wanted to be in the garden. Lastly, I wanted to mention that we were mindful of the space between the beds because we wanted it to be as inclusive as possible so that people with disabilities, for example, and like wheelchairs could still go to the garden and still appreciate the whole experience of it. So yeah, that was it. I would be so happy to answer any questions, or if you had any comments, I'd be really happy to share with you anything. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ella. Okay, we can also do our Q&A at the end. If nobody has any questions right now. Our next speaker is Ashpreet Kaur. She's a Zero Waste Youth USA alumni and a PhD candidate at the University of Florida in the School of Natural Resources and Environment. Ashpreet, if you are ready, you can go ahead and start your presentation.
Slide is visible. My name is Ashpreet Kaur, and I am a final year PhD student at University of Florida, and my research is on zero waste in higher education institutions. So today I will be talking about a few factors that can improve zero waste programs in higher education institutions. As you all know, we are surrounded by a waste crisis where it's becoming difficult to manage the increasing amount of waste we are producing every year. In the US alone, statistics show that 292.4 million tons of municipal solid waste was produced in year 2018. Because the population has been increasing and we're getting industrialized and globalized, our society has started taking resources for granted. People have been using raw materials to make products and then throwing it away. That's the linear chain of consumption. But what is it doing? It is depleting our natural resources, causing health issues due to accumulating waste, and causing waste to build up to the point that we are running out of disposal sites to accommodate the waste. So how can we solve this? Before that, just a little representation to what universities are doing. So here we have a picture of an institution which is diverting 35% of its waste, while there's another institution which is diverting 90% of its waste. So what is so different in these institutions? What are they doing? So the way we can avoid the waste crisis and understand how we can reduce waste in higher education institutions is that we need to bring circularity in material usage and retain those materials in the supply chain for as long as possible. And this is a concept of circular economy. So my research talks about bringing a circular economy to fruition by following the zero waste lifestyle and zero waste hierarchy, where the focus should be on reducing the waste in first place, and then moving to reusing, recycling, and then at the end landfilling. So zero waste focuses on upstream solutions and provides a hope for us to save from this waste crisis. So in this research, I'm focused on understanding the zero waste programs in HEIs. So HEI stand for higher education institutions. So why do we want to focus on higher education institutions? So if a higher education institution is implementing a zero waste program, they can save money that is needed to transport and handle waste, because more focus will be on reducing the waste. They will be able to advance sustainability and sustainable development goals. They can attain a national and international reputation by bringing in programs that can curb waste pollution, and they can gain a competitive edge over the other schools, and they will be able to retain more students. And ultimately, they can just reduce their own waste and better serve the campus population. So how can we achieve this circular economy? And what I propose is that we need to follow the concept of zero waste and the hierarchy of zero waste. We all know that zero waste talks about conserving resources by responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of material. But what is a more technical definition of being zero waste? Like, meaning that what is an acceptable waste diversion and minimization percentage for a system to be a zero waste? And I would like to ask audience if they know that for a system to be a zero waste, what is the percentage of diversion a system needs? Any answers? Okay, I have one answer. So actually, yeah, you're right. So for a system to be a zero waste system, when it diverts 90% or more of the waste from landfills, incinerators, or waste to energy plants, it's called a zero waste system. That is more like the technical definition for organizations. And so it could be done first and foremost by reducing our consumption altogether only to the necessary things, and then following other concepts of like repairing, reselling, remanufacturing, and to increase the reuse of the items, and then moving to the recycling of the product. Recycling is still a downstream solution, so zero waste tries to focus on the upstream solution more. So to understand the factors that can increase the waste diversion and minimization efforts in higher education institutions, I used data from ASHE, which stands for Association for Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education Institution. So the institution report their annual sustainability initiatives to this organization, and they have a section on waste diversion and minimization in their reports. So I used those reports to come up with factors, some of which were touched upon in the literature and some of which I thought would be interesting to explore. So I wanted to see how these factors related to the waste diversion and minimization score, which were given by the report. So I had a list of 274 institutions and their scores on the waste diversion and minimization. And I did a statistical modeling to understand which factors increased these scores. So what I found was doctoral and public institutions, they had more scores, and that was mostly due to more funds available for the doctoral institutions, and public institutions have funds from the state. So, but that is something which an institution cannot control. So some other factors I found was that like a state level factor would be that institution in the West, especially who had a Democratic governor, they had more scores. And the Democratic, having a Democratic governor, it suggests and supports the old argument that the Democratic Party is more environmentally concerned. So these two were my state level factors. Other than that, the institutional factors, which an institution can control, they were having a written zero waste policy in the strategic plan of the institution, having zero waste training and professional development for staff, employees, and students, beginning of every semester, possibly the orientation, when the orientation occurs, having a procurement policy, and not only just for the sake of having that policy, but a policy that is more binding and more centralized, so that whatever is being purchased by different department first goes through the procurement policy, and then it goes to the other departments. So like having that one-stop procurement policy solution. And then being a member of a state sustainability network, it also increased the scores on waste diversion and minimization sector. And it actually was a factor that had that majorly influenced these scores. So if an institution is representing at state level, if they're representing sustainability or even zero waste, they could collaborate more and outreach more, and that's why I assume this is why it had more scores. Other than just the statistical analysis, I also did survey with zero waste experts in the higher education institutions. So these were the people who handled the waste diversion and minimization of the institutions. So I had 32 experts, and I did a survey with them, which was done in 3 parts. And it was done in 3 parts to come to a consensus, where in the round 1, I just asked them what are the barriers and opportunities. In the round 2, they needed to rank those barriers and opportunities. And then in the round 3, again, they needed to rank the barriers and opportunities, but they had the chance to rearrange their ranking based on the round 2, because I provided with them the scores of other participants. So it's called Delphi survey. It's basically a consensus building survey. So based on the consensus, I had a list of opportunities and barriers, but the top, for this presentation, I'm discussing the top 4. So above is a list of top 4 barriers. As you can see, the first was compliance of campus users with best practices in recycling behaviors. So everybody came to the conclusion that there is low compliance, especially with recycling, and that could be due to lack of knowledge or communication. There could be various factors. And the second was absence of campus users' engagement in zero waste activities. And again, that could be because of their low motivation, or again, not having enough knowledge about why do we need zero waste. Third was lack of a full-time employee, which was dedicated specifically to zero waste activities, and having a shortage of ground labor. And what I discovered was the shortage of ground labor has been occurring ever since COVID started. So it's still not clear why there is still a shortage of ground labor, because what I heard was they have positions open, but I think it's mostly because of the low pay grade that is given to these laborers. So that was one of my suggestions of my research, that we need to increase the pay grade so that we can retain our workers. And lastly is the lack of continual education and outreach to campus users regarding zero waste activities. So again, like the statistical analysis that I did, the survey also told that there is a need to provide training and professional development to not only the staff, but also to our faculty, employees, and our students to improve the zero waste programs. And then in the opportunities, first and foremost was having a zero waste policy in the institution strategic plan. Everybody agreed that it's a big opportunity. Some institutions still don't have it. Secondly, they came to the conclusion and consensus that having good relations with stakeholders in different departments is important. And again, this emphasizes the point that we need to have stakeholder participation, because a lot of times when institutions are planning the zero waste or even like climate action sustainability plans, they might be missing out some of the stakeholders. So it's important to keep everybody in touch and get their opinion before planning such a program, because it will lead to success of these programs. Third was collaborating with local waste-centered nonprofits or thrift stores or reuse and refill centers. So if an institution is collaborating with either its cities or any local waste-centered organization, that collaboration could promote waste diversion. They could either send some of their surplus material to these organizations, or either they could encourage their students to maybe go to these thrift stores and just develop the habit of zero waste lifestyle in their students. So that was also one of a big opportunity that came out. And lastly, having sustainable procurement purchasing policy, again, like as the statistical analysis showed, having such a policy was big opportunity, especially having a centralized purchasing policy. So to summarize, whatever was done in the dissertation and to come up with the most important factors, I would say the first and foremost is having a centralized binding procurement policy in the institution is important, so that all the different departments could be held accountable. And there needs to be more research in this sector, because the current existing procurement policies, they are not too exhaustive. So there needs to be more research and development in this area. Second is continual training. So providing training and professional development to staff and students. And again, it has to be on a continual basis, because the institutions have people from all over the world and they're always changing. So there needs to be a continual program of this training. And lastly, having continual education and awareness, which kind of goes hand in hand with the training, that we need to educate and aware our campus population about why we need zero waste and what are the benefits and the programs that the institution might have. So that is all about the dissertation, and I'd like to take all the questions at the end of all the presentations. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ashpreet, for your presentation. It's really interesting to see your findings. We do, I think, have some questions here. Tracy asks, do you have your findings written somewhere publicly?
I will have it soon. I'm still polishing my dissertation, so once it's complete, I will make it public.
That is very understandable. All right. So up next, we have Club Compost from USC. Their club is environmental majors studying at University of South Carolina that started a compost club on their campus. And if you guys are ready, you can take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much. So first of all, we just wanted to thank y'all so much for having us here today. We're really excited to speak with y'all and just share everything that we've been working on. So we're going to be talking about implementing compost bins on a college campus, specifically at the University of South Carolina. So just a little bit more about us. We are Club Compost. 3 of our awesome team members, Janie, Amanda, and Shannon, we're unfortunately not able to speak with us here today, but Ethan and I are here to represent our team. So my name is Rebecca Morris. I am a senior environmental science major at the University of South Carolina. What really got me interested in wanting to work on this project and just in the concept of zero waste and sustainability in general was just the problem of waste and just how much we produce and how it's dealt with, how it's disposed of, and specifically food waste. Food waste is the #1 material found in landfills. And so that seemed like a great place to start to work on combating the waste problem. And I recently learned about composting and just that whole process and how that's a great way to better manage our resources and try to reduce the number of or the amount of food wasted.
Right, and I'm Ethan Lowe. I'm a senior environmental science major at USC. I was interested in this project because I work at a restaurant, so I'm constantly working with food. So this just seemed natural. 40% of food is wasted in America, which is frankly unacceptable. And composting it is just a natural solution to combat food waste. Right. So this project is a part of the Sustainability Projects course, Environmental 533, which provides opportunities for students to implement sustainability projects on campus and in the community. This class is taught by Tom Seifert, and much of the class involves working with clients in a consulting project environments. Throughout the course of the semester, we've had the wonderful opportunity to work with 7 different organizations. All right. Our first organization we worked with was Resoil Compost, a Class 3 commercial composting facility located out of Elgin, South Carolina. And our main contact has been Sam Wooten, who has been a great help in this semester project. Our second major organization we've worked with has been Green Energy Biofuel, which is a waste management service in Winsboro, South Carolina. Basically what they do is that they take cooking oil from the kitchens and convert it into biodiesel.
So we're also partnering with Smart Recycling, which is another waste management facility that specializes in food waste. So they service food waste bins in industrial kitchens like restaurants, hotels, hospitals, and universities. And they're the ones who then transport the food waste to facilities like Resoil to be composted. So like I just mentioned, the compost bins are provided by Smart Recycling. These are able to hold up to 300 pounds of wet food, and there's no liner needed, although they do provide compostable liners, so you can have that as well. These are picked up on a regularly scheduled basis, and Smart also provides training for the kitchen staff to try to prevent contamination, just kind of teach them what can and can't go into the compost bins. So just a little bit more about the process, how it works, and the relationship between Smart Recycling and Resoil. So like I just said, Smart Recycling is the one that physically picks up the bins of food waste and transports them to places like Resoil. So then you get to Resoil, and that's where the magic happens. So Resoil they receive the food waste, and once that's brought in, it's all mixed together and monitored to ensure that it's kept at the proper temperature, proper moisture level, and they also have ways to keep it aerated so that it can all break down. So once that process is completed, which can take up to 3 months to completely break down into what we know as compost, then it's put into this really cool machine that has this sifter in it. And so it'll be processed in that. So the large pieces of wood or debris, trash that may have gotten into the piles of compost is removed. So only the good usable compost is left over. And this is then sold to commercial and residential gardens and farmers to enrich the soil.
So we've also been working with Aramark, which is a food and beverage service company that has been working with USC. We've also been in contact with staff at the Honeycomb Cafe, which is a self-serving dining hall at USC. And that was the location we chose for our Weigh Your Waste events, which we'll talk about shortly.
So we've also been able to partner with Don't Waste Food SC, which is a collaborative outreach and education campaign within DHEC. Their goal is mainly to educate people on the impacts of food waste and inspire them to take action. They also have a goal to cut South Carolina's food waste in half by the year 2030, which is really awesome. We also been able to, our group has become an ambassador for the campaign, which is exciting.
We've also been in contact with the Alpha Gamma Delta sorority on campus. Recently, they became green certified, but want to do more than just the bare minimum requirements for that certification. And one possibility would be implementing composting into their sorority house. The hope is that if one house starts it, other sororities or fraternities will follow the trend as well.
So our main overarching goal for this project was really just to create a more sustainable future for the University of South Carolina. And more specifically, our mission was to firstly implement at least one student composting bin somewhere around campus in one of the dining halls or one of the Greek houses like Ethan just mentioned. We also wanted to confirm that all of Greek Village was recycling their cooking oil with green energy biofuel. And lastly, we really just wanted to educate students at the university on food waste and how much they're producing and kind of educate them on ways that they could combat that through composting.
All right, and throughout the semester, we've actually accomplished quite a lot. We had a successful social media campaign to advertise what we're doing. We took a tour of the resoil facility to really understand how composting works. We've met with Aramark to figure out the Weigh Your Waste events. We've also met with the Deputy Secretary of Sustainability in Student Government, as well as getting our event green certified. We also took a trip to the Greek Village to confirm proper oil collection. And as previously mentioned, we're working with Alpha Gamma Delta on a project, as well as the Weigh Your Waste event, which happened just yesterday. Here's some examples of the social media posters or designs we made, and you can follow us at clubcompost_USC. So yesterday we had the Weigh Your Waste event. We set up a table at the Honeycomb Cafe, and we were able to show students that their food was being composted, and they could all see what was happening with their food waste as well, and what can and cannot be composted. And we're also going to be working with Alpha Gamma Delta in the future for projects.
Yeah, so just to take a step back and like kind of see the bigger picture on what we wanted to do with this project and to tie it back in with the theme of today, individual act, community impact. So what we're doing is really just a small step towards making USC more sustainable and college campuses more sustainable. So we wanted this compost program and education to provide opportunities for students in the community to just really be able to more sustainably steward its resources. And we hope that through this, we can get students kind of thinking more about the impact that their daily choices make on the environment. And hopefully after the semester is over and we finish this class, we're able to see this project grow across campus into more dining halls and areas, and then out into the community. And then for just the more community aspect, USC is going to be able to utilize the waste that they make in the kitchen and the student waste from leftovers on their plate by turning it into compost that will then be taken to resoil and turned into compost to be able to be sold to farms and gardens throughout the Southeast and be able to give back to the community in that way.
Wow.
All right, if you have any questions, type them in the chat and let us know. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. So if y'all have any questions now, like Ethan said, or if maybe you think about you have a question later that you weren't able to ask, I've attached our email addresses, and there's Sam's email with Resoil as well, and our Instagram. This information is also in the Jamboard as well for anyone who'd like to have access to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Rebecca and Ethan, for sharing. It's really great to see that you're able to get so much done on your campus. I know it's not easy. Everyone, if you have any questions, please feel free to share them in the chat. I do have a question for Rebecca and Ethan. You know, I think here in California, we kind of take compost for granted almost these days because it's much more normalized here. Can you talk about in South Carolina, is composting something that people are really doing at all? Is there any like municipal collection of compost, or is this really like a kind of a brand new grassroots thing in your community?
Yeah, so I know, I can't remember where all there is. I know Resoil is one of the, if not the only, like one of the main composting facilities in South Carolina. So it's definitely something that is like just starting. It hasn't really, is not really a popular thing to do yet. So yeah, definitely not on that scale. But really, I feel like not many people that I know compost here. So yeah, that's definitely something that we'd like to get started at everywhere.
Also not advertised.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's also not advertised. If whether or not it is being composted or not, because the honeycomb facility does do composting, but no one knows that it was doing it because it's happened in the back.
Yeah, that was one of our launch day that we had yesterday. We were really hoping to, like we had mentioned, educate students because yeah, we didn't know before, and I'm sure a lot of other people didn't realize that the food waste in the kitchen was already being composted. So yeah.
That's great. That's really exciting. You get to be kind of on the forefront of compost for your campus, and really sounds like in the state as well. Good work.
Ramiro, do you have a question?
Yeah, so look, I'm not sure, but so I'm a USC alum. I went to the University of South Carolina a long time ago, and a lot of the programs that you all are talking about are programs that I've known existed for a very long time. So my question to you all is like, what are you all doing in efforts to hold people accountable? Because I know, I mean, I went through, so I worked at the Office of Sustainability. I also ran our campus garden. If y'all are familiar with the Behind a Green Quad, very involved in this. And part of me is very happy to see that people are continuing the work that we started, but also wanting to know if anything has shifted in that respect, to like holding people accountable and holding everyone accountable.
Yeah, so I actually am part of Sustainable Carolina and work with the Office of Sustainability. So that's really cool that you mentioned that. We have started in recent years. I don't know when you graduated, but we started Kaki's Compost. So we are doing like some student-led things to pick up compost around campus and use it in the garden. As for keeping people accountable, I know that one of the problems we've run into, mainly with honeycomb as well, that there has been contamination of the bins on campus. So yeah, Ethan, do you have anything to add to that?
I was going to say with contamination issues, I believe SMART has already sent out people to train staff in kitchen what can and can't go in the bins, and it just isn't sticking for whatever reason. So efforts are being made. It's just a little slow right now, I guess.
And we also, sorry, were you finished?
Yeah, I'm done.
Like, also, you can see like the graphics that we made. We have made some posters putting out like yesterday for our launch day to kind of say like what can and can't go in the bin on the student end, because yeah, a lot of people just don't know. So
Yeah, these, changing cultural norms like that takes a lot of time and patience for sure. So you just gotta
I wanted
stick it
to
out and keep training
what's up, Ella?
people.
I wanted to add, I love the project that you guys did. ESF also has a lot of compost bins around campus, so I'd love to like connect with you to see if like you're having difficulties like changing the culture, or like I'd be so happy to like chat with you guys about that, and potentially help you or just be involved in some way, shape, or form.
that'd be awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that'd be great.
Ella, we did also get a question for you. Was there a reason that your group decided to create agroecology instead of something else like permaculture? Or can you explain the difference between the two, maybe?
So we were so permaculture is a little bit different because it does involve like a forest, like trees and all that, and our land, or the area that we were using was a lot smaller. We were trying to use the Syracuse University plot, and so that was really limited. I was also in an agroecology class, and so that was the focus for the project, to use these principles instead. But they're really similar and interconnected in a way in what they stand for.
Great, thank you for that explanation. If anyone has any other questions, please put it in the chat or raise your hand. Otherwise, we just have a couple minutes left, and then we'll be taking a 10-minute break before our next session. And thank you to our speakers so much for sharing all your experience. All right, I think that's it for this session. So we can go ahead and take our break now. We'll see you all in 12 minutes.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.